morning. It's exciting that we get to go back into our sanctuary for worship. But with that, we do have a few guidelines that we have to follow with social distancing and how we're going to be seated in the sanctuary. So this video is going to explain that a little bit, and it all begins outside. And if you see down here, we have a blue X at the bottom of the stairs. As we go up, we'll see it up here, and then we have another one in the narthex. We set those up, and as you come on Sunday morning, you can go to the closest blue X that doesn't have anybody standing by it as you wait to enter the sanctuary. You will be ushered in, and we'll explain that in a little bit. So let's go into the sanctuary. So as we come into the narthex, this is the final blue X for our social distancing. We'll wait here to enter the sanctuary and to be seated. Harlan here is playing our usher, and he is going to usher us to the furthest pew away that is not occupied. We are not going to tape off pews. We're not going to mark places to sit. The usher is going to set us up and seat us so everybody will be social distance. Now, this also means we don't get to choose where we sit. The ushers are going to seat you. So you may end up on the north side, and you usually sit on the south side. And I know we're not all hip on change, but this is how it's got to be as we enter the sanctuary. So you will enter. Of course, Harlan has his mask on since he cannot socially distance from us. And then he will just direct us which pew to go into and be seated. If your family size is 2, or even if it's just you yourself being seated alone, we may have 2 different families in the same pews. And we do ask, just as you sit at the end of the pews, and you maintain at least the 6-foot social distance between each other. The other thing that we do ask is that once you're in the sanctuary, please remain seated. You can get up if you need to use the restroom or other things like that, but to get up to talk to somebody or that, we do ask you do not do. Just remain seated and wait for the service to begin. Now, the ushers and elders who are assisting will be wearing masks during the sanctuary. We do want to let you know masks are totally optional during the service. So if you feel that you would like to wear a mask, please feel free to do that. If you feel that it would hinder your worship in any way, you are not required to wear those. So you will be seated, and you will remain in that spot throughout the entire worship service until we get to the time for Holy Communion. We're going to celebrate the Lord's Supper pretty much the same way that we celebrated it outside, with it being the final part of our worship service. Now, as I mentioned, on Sundays, you're going to be entering through our main entrance into our narthex. On Communion Sundays, when you exit, you're going to be exiting through our north exit, through our handicap ramp, and that to go back to your vehicle. And that is so nobody has to cross each other. As they come forward for communion, you will go right out to the north exit and exit the sanctuary with that. With that, Harlan has his wipes and hand sanitizer. We are going to have that available during that. As you come forward for the Lord's Supper, we will have 2 tables set up front. These tables will serve to hold Christ's body and blood as you come forward. We'll have 1 table on each side of the baptismal font. So as you come forward, you will see the cup and the wafer are together. You will simply just pick that up, and you can remove the wafer and receive it, and then drink Christ's blood as you are directed to. In between each table of the Lord's Supper, we will disinfect our table, which we set everything on. So it will be guaranteed to be sanitized for each group. You will be directed to receive Christ's body and blood. We will then have the dismissal, and we will do both tables at the same time. So at the end of the Lord's Supper, you then will be directed by our elders to exit through these doors, with the group closest to the door, of course, going first. As you exit, you'll go down our wheelchair ramp, and when you reach the bottom, there will be hand sanitizer there available for you to sanitize your hands as you leave and go home. The rail that is on our wheelchair ramp will not be sanitized in between each group, so I do encourage you, when you get to the bottom, to sanitize your hands. In the same way as you enter into the narthex, we will have hand sanitizer available for that as well. On non-communion Sundays, we will not need to come forward to the altar, so at the end of the service, you will simply be ushered out from the back of the sanctuary to the front, going through our main entrances back to your vehicles. The one thing we do have to ask as you leave, and even as you come to worship here on Sunday mornings, is that we not stand outside and talk to each other, not go up to each other's vehicles to have a conversation with different families. But please just proceed in a timely manner to those spots on the steps and wait to enter the sanctuary. And as you leave, please go directly to your vehicle and leave immediately following the service. As you leave on Sunday mornings, on Communion Sundays, we will have an offering plate set up at this door. Non-Communion Sundays, the offering plate will be in the back of the narthex, so you may leave your offerings as you leave as well. For the time being, we are not allowed to use hymnals, but as you enter the church parking lot, you will be given a bulletin to use for that day's service. Those bulletins will have the entire service printed with the music, as we have been doing with our drive-in service. And the reason you're getting it in the church parking lot is for those who wish to stay in their vehicle, they will be able to worship with us as they listen to the service in the church parking lot on their radio. So you will have your bulletins. One thing we do ask with that as well is please take that bulletin home with you after the worship service is over, so we do not have to pick up all of those as we clean and disinfect the sanctuary for next week's service. We look forward to having you join us in our sanctuary as we do begin worshiping inside again, and we do pray that it is a joyful time as we receive Christ's forgiveness in his house of worship again. Have a blessed day.